Welcome to the Starting Over Podcast. I'm your host, Edward Shelton, aka Dark Logos, and this is the show where we look at the strategies, tactics, and mechanics behind the game of heroclix. Oh man, today's been busy. Let me rephrase this. This weekend's been busy. I recorded an episode of The Quarry. I was trying to get some other last minute testing and other things done for Rocktober. Still play testing some things for Rocktober. I don't want to say I'm the hardest working man in heroclix, but I'm probably up there right now. Just got tons of things going down, so it's just I wouldn't say frustrating. I'm just busy. So I did the 3 hour live stream in the show and other stuff. I'm tempted to do a live stream again. If you all like that, let me know in the comments below, like days of the week and times I should live stream. And just let you know, I'll be live streaming from PlayStation. So I'll it'll be like, I don't know what to call this, and so on and so forth. It'll be something like that. Yeah. All right. So today's episode, we're going to talk about creativity and the problems of making creative in diverse teams in today's current heroclix landscape. And the main reason I'm doing this is twofold. First off, I know there's a lot of people that have like Jakeem hate in their heart, to the level of how Lex Luthor views Superman. And so I understand that. I think also we still have a high amount of what was that Frank Sinatra song? It's like, and I did it my way, type thing in us. And we got to the top. We did it our way, and that's why we got there. And so because of that, there's good things and bad things that comes from the creativity element. And so I'm going to try to tackle that just a little bit today, and try to help you. If you're in your last few minutes of preparing for October, or even if you are a person that's trying to get into competitive and you're trying to make different and unique teams to sort of throw off your opponents. So everything that I have that I'm going to be presenting today should be useful to you in some form or fashion. All right. So let's get started. All right. Why are you building a unique team? Why are you not playing standard? That needs to be the first question that you ask yourself. If you can't answer that question, go back to playing standard. And I would also sort of come back and say, if you say to yourself, I'm doing it because I don't want to play what everybody else is playing, again, come back and ask yourself again. Because those two answers are unacceptable. I don't know, and I just don't want to play what everybody else is playing. Because, the quote, the biblical parable, pride before fall. It's really easy to get prideful and say, I'm better than the collective wisdom of every other player out there. I'm going to play this, this hungry hippos, slightly different, team. And it's easy to say, like, hey, this is so sideways that's going to catch everybody off guard, and they're not going to have a way to deal with it. Okay. So if you push that aside, your first reason for looking at something different is, I have something, insert X figure here, that can destabilize these core elements of the game right now with XYZ amount of risk. Okay? I have this figure that is able to destabilize select types of categories of teams, but carry X and Y risk. All right. Now, some people would say, every meta team has risk. I agree. But when you are going sort of off of the beaten path, your risk goes up. Now, I'll say this as a person who's played Brainiac Skullship for multiple years and has had people on my team tell me to stop looking at Brainiac Skullship and let it die. That you can get caught up with your personal identity of who you are in the glory days of whatever figure it is, and you surprising people and you doing blank, blank, blank and whatever. Okay? You can't do that. You have to be honest with yourself from the beginning. Why are you are competing? Why are you designing the team that you're designing? You have to be upfront with yourself from the beginning. Don't look to the glory days and be like, no one's going to think about Highfather anymore with, Iron Pharaoh. Ha ha. Yeah. Because I actually did do that. I played that at a rock. I played Highfather and Iron Pharaoh. And it didn't do well. It did not do well at all. And one of the main reasons that it didn't do well was that at that tournament, I had burnt out my ideas. And so I got caught up in something from the past and tried to reinvent, tech from the past, and it didn't work. Okay, so once you found whatever element you're looking at, and you've established, like, this is it. This is what I'm working with. All right. Then you can easily come back and say, cool, now that I know I'm working with blank figure, how much of the field is this common meta issue? How much of the field is this other meta issue? And for the rest of the field, how can I just sort of make a 50-50 game out of it? And what am I going to hard lose to? Okay. So going back, there's usually two prominent types of tech that's in heroclix at a time. Okay. So you can either say, like if you go back for a period, it was Justin Seifert and Krang. At the same time, it was also people were playing not Invisible Jet, Quinjet. Okay, so you had two dynamic things that you could play in different ways, but you had two core ideas that were out there. And if you couldn't deal with Krang and Justin Seifert, and if you couldn't deal with Quinjet, you really didn't have a team, in all honesty. Okay, now insert the beginning of a diversification. So you go to the 200-point Lex Luthor with 2 Atomicas, Justice League ATA for 1 point. I know, take that back. I don't think he was running Round Table. He was running. You're running Sins. You're running Sins. I think you're running 3 Sins. 3 Sins. Yeah, I think it's 3 Sins and 3 ID cards. Okay, and you're running Shield level 7 for Nick Fury. Then you're running Wonder Woman ID card for Goddess of War Wonder Woman. And then you're running War Machine ID card to run the Age of Ultron War Machine. Okay, because he's your pulse wave. All right. So when you look at that, you could say to yourself, hey, look, if I face a Krang can't target my main guy. And I'm just going to call out this big, huge attacker, and I'm going to kill Justin Seifert, and then I'm going to kite Krang with my call-ins, or try to kill the rest of his support and just run from Krang. If he kills both of my probs, so what? I've killed over 50 to or 85 points of his team, I'm fine. Okay. So that element is there. Now, where did this, little idea come in? All right. If you look at what George Masu did, he found something that he liked, found that, hey, there's another mechanic that allows him to do something without losing its main advantage, and then saw other elements that could be stacked and played with and integrated, so that, oh, hey, look, this character, no one's really looking at this because we're so used to processing this game element in A position, while George was looking at it from more of a K position. Okay, way far from standard thought. Okay, not necessarily in a Z position, or a Z if you live in Canada, where you're looking at the opposite end. Okay, but what you're looking at it is just more of like just outside of the normal context of which is being used. Okay, that's why I just say the K position. Okay, all right, so going on, you have a team that is disruptive. You have a team that has weaknesses. It can be pulse waved. Okay, so that those elements are there. You had Black Canary floating around, and it was easy to make her, a real girl, and several other elements that could just be problems. You had other Lex Luthors that could just choose to pulse wave you. That would, that's a thing. But when push comes to shove, when you look back at the dynamic of how that team functions, then you're asking yourself several cool core questions. Number one, why am I playing this outside of the two main other teams? Number two, what unique advantages does this give me? Number three, what unique disadvantages does this give me in this matchup? Number four, when I look at surprising my opponent, how long is that surprise going to last? Okay, so when I look in the context of George Masu's team, the surprise and admiration was at Origins, but when you look at the tournaments after, only those people that weren't paying attention to Origins were like, well, what does that do? I don't know about this. I got my Krang. Okay. What does that Lex Luthor do again? Okay, so I can't target him, but I'll just pulse wave him. Okay, well, you pulse wave me from 1. All right, so I call in my War Machine, and War Machine's going to pulse wave you for 4 after you took 2 damage, so you're really low. And I have no reason not to try to plink you for 1 with my my Atomicas. Okay, you have to run back. That's fine. Summon Nick Fury, increase your own range by 3. So now I'm a 12. Watcher's Eye, whatever I need to. Kamehameha Blast, you're dead. Pure and simple. For the Quinjet, I think it was a little bit more intricate than that. I think you had to start with Nick Fury, then go to Wonder Woman, and then end with War Machine. Or it was start with War Machine, then go to Wonder Woman. I forgot which one it was, but it was something along those lines. But Wonder Woman would charge Flurry, picking up 2 objects, which unfortunately she can't do that now. Picking up 1 object, and one of them would be an Ultra Heavy, and that's one of the main reasons why she was just so good. I think she's the best Wonder Woman that's ever been made, the Goddess of War Wonder Woman. But anyway, I digress. So when we see something, come out of the woodwork, what does it do? It still, like I said, it tackles some of those core elements. And those people being caught by surprise eventually understood what the team did. And if they didn't have a certain unique way of dealing with Lex Luthor in multiplicity, because you're just going to spend your ID cards killing that thing that can hurt Lex Luthor or that can target Lex Luthor, then yeah, it's pretty much game. Okay, now if you look at that team I gave you with Lex Luthor and the 3 sins with Pandora's box, and 3 ID cards, your liability is the sins on the atomicas in the ID cards. That's less than 100 points worth of liability. So once you score 70 points or 75 or 80 points, your opponent now has to kill Lex. And if you play it right, and I'm not just like, do stall, man. I mean, like, literally, if you play it right, you don't have to worry that much else about the game. So this leads us to sort of our next, like, thought that we have to have is, what is our win condition? What is our win condition? How are we going to win games? Standard, I would tell you this. In high level play, there are 3 ways to win games. And in Rock, there's really only 2. Okay. And I say it like this. Some people would say wipe. In high level play, wiping is really, really hard to do. If you look at top table games, games that are your out rounds, you don't always see a lot of wiping unless the matchup is just bad. That's the only time that you see any sort of wiping. And that's important to keep in mind, that the only time you normally see wiping is in situations where the matchup is bad. So on average, your proper answer is just to score more points or score a lot of points. Okay? All right. Your second option is to score a few amount of points and deny your opponent a lot of points. Okay? So, again, like, there's teams that are designed to, like, just, hey, like, whatever, you kill blank guy, don't care. Kill blank guy, don't care. Kill blank guy, don't care. Don't care so hard. All right, I'm bringing them back, and I'm just, turning the round table or a teleporter. I'm able to get a super boost to my attack for every person you kill. And I'm going to power up and freaking smack that hammer to your face. Like, it's easy to look at those teams and be like, of course those teams have to wipe because they burned a lot of points. The drones teams are the classic example of that. But I would also come back and say there aren't so many of those types of teams right now where you're just creating guy after guy after guy and you're burning yourself out in the process. There really aren't. There are a few, but there really aren't a ton. Like, I don't see anybody doing Carnage and Carnage at like 100, and then a bunch of the Loki, the Loki God of Trickery setup, where there's just tons of Loki pogs, not Loki pogs, of Lokis popping out everywhere. I don't see that as a tactic yet. Maybe mix in some other elements or whatever. Maybe, like, if you do that. But right now, I don't see that as a big deal. Okay, so you can't say like, oh, I have that, plus I have, Tyrannoids everywhere or whatever. Like, you're limited in your spawn spam crap. Okay? But if you crank out more and more stuff, you're not throwing out points. Okay? Whereas I'm trying to think of somebody that throws away points when they make their guys. Hermes. You're paying for Hermes pogs. So your opponent is getting points off of that. So you can't really afford to just throw those away. So when all's said and done, you're looking at, a strategy of, hey, This is sort of different, sort of newish. That would have worked a little bit better with ants and pre change poison. Okay, so there's that. But there are some elements that's like, oh hey, cool, I see that archetype there, but it doesn't necessarily come together and congeal. So if you're told like, hey man, I got to deal with the Jakeem or I got to deal with the Unimind, you might be able to clog up the Unimind. You won't be able to do jack to the Jakeem. And Jakeem is just going to take his shots and kill you. And Unimind might call out Hawkeye, and then he's going, the Unimind player is going to have like a 10-minute turn as Hawkeye proceeds to like running shot your whole entire team. So that is there. So, like some older concepts, while they might be interesting, there's something that KUNGFU said in conversations with him and also on Critical Clicks, is that what he tries to do at times is look at older concepts and then bring them into modern age. And there are times that there are some older concepts that just don't work because now's not their time. Because there's like an infinite attacker Hawkeye, or like, hey, for some reason I'm able to pulse wave the world, whoever. I only take 1 damage, better version of Doomsday that exists. Whatever that may be, there's always something like now that might disrupt some, and I want to make that clear, some old strategies, not all old strategies. So you can go through and, figure out various different things. Currently, right now, a strategy that I'm sort of surprised, no one's looked at, even though that I've talked about it multiple times, is the Green Lantern tank. The Green Lantern tank has a lot of elements on there that are really good and viable for modern, and your Green Lantern is like your Batman Green Lantern. And from Elseworlds, and he can pick up and carry 8 characters, and more than likely you're going to be carrying like six or 5, and like little guys, and you're just going to like take your shot, and it doesn't seem like that's viable, or how can that be a good idea, Dark Logos? And it's like, well, if you look at it for your points and your investment, you could have a really strong force, utilizing that Batman, that Batman Green Lantern. And, he has certain things that'll keep himself safe. And there's also other elements that you can still pair with him, so that you have a very strong, like, secondary or third attacker. And those elements are in play as well. Okay. So you have to look at like creativity, all right, in terms of, am I reinventing, not necessarily reinventing the wheel, but am I reinventing, a dinner dish? I'll watch Chopped with my mom, and there's that or Guy's Grocery Games, and you'll find contestants trying to reinvent classic dishes with different stuff. And sometimes they come out with really nasty dishes. Sometimes the dishes aren't cooked long enough. And sometimes they come out with, restaurant sellable quality dishes that are awesome. And so I really think that a majority of times when you're making a team that utilizes like classic figures and trying to bring it into modern age, a majority of the time you're going to be making nasty dishes. Until you find something that clicks or taps into a niche that's not looked at in depth right now. And so I find that to be very important as well. And so the next thing that we can sort of like as we move forward is assessing your side options once your main force is decided. Now, the main reason I say it's so vague, like side options, is that you're not quite sure until you start play testing it what additional things your team needs. So when you start play testing it, you can be like, okay, I need these things because if I don't have these things, I'm in trouble. And more along the lines of this. Let's just say you're making a all right, I'll just go and use an old team I made. I started off with Felix Faust, and I was like, well, I'm going to try to do a Felix Faust team. And I know it's lazy, but this is also on top of my head. So I was like, okay, Felix Faust is good, but I need something that's going to do other elements once if I don't roll well with Felix Faust. Okay, so I started looking at other game mechanics, and I said to myself, like, hey, look, I like Brimstone for what he does at 150. And I like playing, what's his name? Justin Zephyr. Okay, so I should be able to be aggressive and constantly attack my opponent and have, I think, like 2 ID cards or something like that with a 3 sin box or two or 3 sin box, I forgot. Having Sloth on there, and I think it was energy shield deflection for whatever. I had something for Faust. I think it was Envy or something. I had something. I don't know what it was. Anyway, so I had a 2 sin box, and I think I had 2 ID cards or 3 ID cards, something like that. All right, so initially I said, like, hey, I want to start with X. And then I found another element previously that was okay. Because I was running an overdrive with Faust and Jakeem. And it was not pretty. It was not pretty at all. It was anti-sexy. It was, horrible. So what ended up happening is I had to take a step back, and I asked myself this: did I need to play Jakeem? And at that stage for that WizKids Open, the answer was no. Jakeem was like new, but I really wasn't like, I'm gonna go play Jakeem. Okay, the second thing that came to my mind was, all right, did Jakeem solve any of my problems? All right, and the issue was of like dealing with people coming to attack me and dealing with realistically like having mobility to get up there for the lockdown. So once I started looking at things, I'm like, well, Overdrive is great for sort of getting me around, but Jakeem isn't covering some bases that I need him to cover. All right, so I came back and I asked myself, I'm like, all right, well, can I buff Jakeem? No. All right, well, that takes, that element away. All right, I can't buff Jakeem. Okay. Can I do something with this overdrive here? Not really. Okay. Is Pandora's box sort of working out for me? Yes and no. It's there's some elements that's slow for the tempo, and I'm not quite sure if I'm able to always get that off. But overall, it sort of serves me, but it doesn't like full on serve me as best as it possibly could. Okay, so there's some things that, from a points perspective, I could play around with. There were some things from a character selection perspective that I also could play around with. Okay, I think I also had another character. I'm short on points. I think I had another character on that team too. I think I probably had somebody doing barrier. I think I forgot. So anyway, when I came back and I said, all right, what's my core element that I'm going to have to deal with? I know that I'm going to be dealing with other Fausts, and I also know that I could have a possibility of dealing with the double D20. I have to deal with Don't Die and a few other, elements that are out there. Okay. So I sort of took a moment back and I'm like, all right, well, with everything that I have, by playing Brimstone, uh, I could get a lot of mobility. I could constantly push, keep up aggression. I could also potentially heal with Brimstone. And if my opponent just attacks and attacks and attacks Brimstone, I can just sort of mitigate that damage back. Okay? If someone kills Justice Zephyr, that is my liability. He is my liability. And being mindful that he is my liability is a huge element. Okay, Faust is one of my liabilities. I have to keep that in mind because I don't have something on Faust. I don't have anything on Faust that's really going to stop him from taking as much damage as he should. Okay, so when we unpacked everything, we can see how everything came together. Okay. Was it something completely 100% original? No. Was it different than the standard team that you were seeing at the time? Yes. Okay. So that's some important elements just sort of going along with that. Another thing when it comes to like building original teams, know when to borrow from other people's ideas. All right. Know when to borrow from other people's ideas. Some people want to think like they're the first ones that did whatever. And the answer is no. You're not the first to do whatever. It's been done before. And it's been done before. Okay. And you could say like, oh, hey, but what about this little cool interaction here that WizKids just invented. It was like, nope, it's been done in some game sometime before. All right. So don't think like, oh, this is new. Okay. The next thing that you want to look at is when you're borrowing those ideas, understand why you are borrowing those ideas. Okay. If you're just doing it because that's what you're supposed to be doing, or that's what everybody's saying you should be doing, then no, you're automatically in a bad situation. Okay. All right. So after you know like what you're borrowing from people and why you're borrowing the tech from people, the next thing that you need to do is when you play test it and you see how it like congeals together, take a moment to see if the tempo of the team is working in the current game tempo. All right. Make sure that again that your current team works with the proper tempo. All right. Now, here's why this is a problem. Okay. A lot of people will be like, well, I fixed my hole against blank, blank, blank. Okay. And the issue is, yes, you fix your hole when you picked up everything. And I have my 3 objects and I've picked all of those up. And then I've also able to turn up my teleporter to power number 2. And, also I'm able to, get, X condition on my 3rd or 4th character. No. It's just too much. It's just way too much. So what you need to look at is on your turn 1 and your turn 2. If your opponent rushes you, does your team still work? Is your team still effective? If the answer is maybe, you need to go and re-examine like how you're going to adapt, okay, to various situations, because you're not in a good position right now. You don't know how best to react to what's going on around you, because for whatever reason you think that you have to go through everything and pick everything up and check all the boxes, when no, you don't need to do that. You don't need to check all the boxes. You might need to know when to check a third of your boxes and just sort of run and check the other boxes during the games when you get a chance. So that's another thing about flexibility that a lot of people don't like learn. And for me, for the longest time, I had this Yu-Gi-Oh! Exodia final type viewpoint when it comes to heroclix. It was like, okay, I've gotten all my stuff together. I'm in the perfect position. I've triangulated, pentagram angulated all of my perplexes and probs. One probber covers 8 characters. It's perfect. My opponent is in trouble the moment that they step within X range, and I shall win because I have 3 probs, 4 5 perplexes, 2 main attackers, all for 300 points. and yeah, that was a part, making sure that everything was in position and whatnot. But for you to get into that wonderful magical formation, it would take 4 turns. By that time, your opponent's TK'd up their main attacker, took a shot at you, and been TK'd back, and has been doing this the entire time. So if you're able to roll out and evade some attacks, that's just luck. It's not necessarily that's a good idea. So again, keep track of how the meta is operating, because I remember classically, for the longest time, you had turn 3 engages was average. Turn 4 engages, that's if both players are really, really cautious, on larger maps, like the classic maps, like the OG maps that were like the size of a tent, those maps. So I see, in all honesty, why some of those games would go longer. And even with the new format, with the current format maps, when those were first introduced, they created a situation where there were lots and lots of walls and blocking terrain to make it hard for you to get from one side of the map to the other side of the map, like real quickly. Like you had to like maneuver your way into this like closed, enclosed area that was just brutal. Okay. Go back, dang it, 07, I think is when they reformatted the maps to what we have now. It's like 07 or 08, somewhere around then. What year did Armored Wars come out? Because that's when they reformatted the maps. Anyway, sorry, I digress. But anyway, so when you look at those maps, like it took a while for you to set up for your turns before you engaged your opponent. And if you just sort of sat back and waited for your opponent to come to you, it was definitely like turn 4, turn 5. Like, because you had to navigate through the maze, and the game was making it so that it took longer for you to cross the map, and giving the illusion that there's just as much space as there was previously. All right, now, enter today's modern world with hyper taxis and GIMP TK and, high movement hypersonic figures or whatever else that's there, and OK range figures. You now have to ask yourself realistically, like, turn one, I am fine. Turn two, on average, what am I going to deal with? And can I fight on turn two? Because if you can't fight on turn two, or at least reach out and touch somebody that's approaching midfield, you need to reevaluate like what type of team you're doing, unless you're doing a turtle team, or you have some other weird alternate, development with your figure. Okay, so that timing element becomes really important. Okay, so let's sort of push forward and try to like wrap things up. So now you have your team, and you've practiced it. You've gotten your tempo right. You know that it's going to hit people sideways. They don't know, most people are going to read your card like 4 to 5 times. You found the perfect power combination just to screw everyone's day. Congratulations. All right. You go out there and you play, and they break the top 8 and you lose in top 8. All right. You're not on the quarry. All right. Only to cover top half of the mountain. Okay. You didn't make top half of the mountain. What then? You have to make some assessments. Okay. So let's just say you lost in prelims. If you lost in prelims, then you have to suck it up and admit what were your major causes for your losses. Were your matches close? And I mean close like within one figure or within 10 to 20 points. Were there a lot of last second KOs? Okay. If that's the case, there was a lot of last second KOs, or, you might need to play faster. So it might not be the team. You just might need to play faster. Okay. Some people can do that. Some people can't. It's not necessarily a negative character attack, but just more of a reality. I have been a slow player for a good part of my heroclix life, and being in competitive has forced me to be a faster player once it was sort of revealed like, yo man, you slow play. Like, you're stressing yourself out too much about the perfect move. Make a great move. Make a great move. Don't make a perfect move. Don't spend forever trying to look for the perfect move. Make a great move. And when you have time and the situation demands it, then look for the perfect move. But until then, go make a great move. Definitely if you're starting off, just go make a great move. All right, so if you can't make your decisions quick enough, then that's on you, homie. That's on you. That's not the team. Okay? If the points are tight and it's always this last minute stuff, that's on you. Okay, there's something that you could say like, hey, you weren't placing tight. You didn't fully assess your opponent's team. If you're getting blown out and you're trying to do everything that the team is supposed to do and it's not working, and you are 0-4, then the team doesn't work. The team doesn't work. All right. Now, you made it to out rounds. Okay, and you lose on the bottom half of the mountain. Okay, so with that, I would tell you, number one, measure carefully. Did you lose because of matchup, or did you lose because of a bunch of dumb decisions, or did your team just start to fall apart once put under higher pressure? Okay. I talk about like tiers of figures in heroclix, not to say you can never play these, but try to show you, your amount of liability with some figures. And when you're going off and being creative and going off of reservation, you need to know why you're doing what you're doing. More importantly, how that's going to impact your team, and then sort of taking that next step and then saying, look, okay, once I get against these higher level teams It's one thing when Jimmy, the local guy that likes playing heroclix, plays one of these teams. But it's a lot different when PJ Bolin, Edward Shelton, George Massue, Easton Brock plays one of these teams. Okay? It's a lot different when, somebody of better skill plays the Jakeem team versus Timmy, who isn't going to pick Invincible Shape Change when he has 2 tokens, and is probably going to, pick something like Combat Reflexes and, perplex up his defense. Okay? Timmy will do silly stuff like that. You have to factor in for Timmy doing silly stuff like that. All right. So, going on. You're in top 8. If you just notice, like, hey, I had a close match, and it was within 10 to 20 points or within a figure, then yes, it may just require you to play a little bit tighter, or B, reassess some fine-tune some mechanics in that team. For myself, even though my results were worse, and that was primarily my mistake on a misunderstanding of the rules, if I look at my Nebraska States versus my Kansas States team, my Nebraska States team was a good team, but it was clear that Rocket Launcher Punisher was not my friend. Not with the team that I had. Okay? But when I made some changes and I added in a Super Ape and Shifting Focus Black Panther and an extra ID card, oh wow, look, my team changed. My team did a lot better. Even though I got 4th, but I was dominating up until I made my play mistake. Okay? So I'll say it, is that when I go from Tournament A, which I made the finals, and I lost in the finals, to Tournament B, where I lost in top 4, I can clearly say, between the first weekend and the second weekend, the team on the second weekend was a lot more refined and took out some of those problems that were just constant. Yes, I was expecting a bunch of high mobility overdrive teams because I was expecting everybody to copy PJ, but everybody didn't copy PJ. So now I have to be like, oh, so you didn't copy PJ, and nobody's really copying PJ. Everybody's sort of playing standard. All right, that's great. I don't need this. Okay, so those are some things to sort of to think about and to wrap your head around. The other thing I would tell you is let's just say you do get in the top half of the mountain and you lose in top 4 or in finals. It doesn't mean that your tech is bad, but you need to assess why did you lose, okay? And more importantly, the 3 main factors that you always have to consider is: did my dice fail me? Did I just play someone better, or did I fail myself? I can always write off my dice failed. Okay, I will. Anybody on my team, and they tell me look, man, I couldn't roll above a 4. After once I got into out rounds, I couldn't roll past a 4. Somehow I beat the first guy because he kept crit missing himself, and I KO'd a Pog, and then I won. But when I made it in the top 4, I just lost. Okay, there's that. All right, did you just get outplayed? Because sometimes that happens. Sometimes that happens. I've played players that are way better players than I am. I've been outplayed. Okay? Now, when you recognize you've been outplayed, you have to take steps to patch those holes. And if you choose not to patch those holes, then that's on you. That's part of the growth development. Okay? But in the end, if you just didn't play your game plan and you let some silly thing that somebody said get in your head, or if you're tired and you didn't take a break and you're up there chatting it up in between rounds because you think that's the most important thing they do, like, oh, I see, I see, Aaron Cantu over there, and he's talking with PJ and George. I want to go over there and talk too because they're famous and well known. No, sit your butt down. Sit your butt down away from your friends because they want to chat too sometimes. And you just need to be like, yo, man, I need to rest. I played 4 rounds of hyper chess. My brain needs a break. I'm going to put these earbuds in and woo-saw and chill. All right? Sometimes you just need to do that. Yes, you should debrief with your friends. They'll give you some ideas. I've had some great powwows during breaks before out rounds. Helped me do really well. At the same time, folks that roll with me know he's got the earbuds in, just let him go. He's got the earbuds in, just let him go. When just get him when it's time to do rounds. Tell him Edward, it's time to it's rounds. Get in here. Okay. Take the earbuds out. Let's go. All right. And I have other videos about what's inside your head and all that other jazz. So you can go way back and listen to those. But as it is right now, if you come in and say, I'm tired, I'm fatigued, I can't deal with it. I saw that he had blanks, so I changed completely what I did. That's on you. That's on you. You have to know the variations of your game plan, but you need to practice those variations. If you don't practice those variations, that's on you. Okay? So, again, when you look at the team, all right, and this is something real talk that I had to deal with at Origins for World Championships. I got a wild hair up my butt due to what I played against in Nationals. Played something that never play tested, that I thought about in theory, hodgepodge together, played, went 0-4 or 1-3, I forgot which, okay, lost to a person that I thoroughly waxed in Nationals, only to see someone play exactly piece by piece, ID card for ID card, what I was playing, make it into the top 4 of Worlds. So it wasn't the team. It wasn't the team. My team was fine. The team that I had at Nationals was fine. What was wrong was the team that I brought to Worlds. What was wrong was the mindset that I had. What was wrong was the lack of practice that I had. What was wrong was that I misread the meta. What was wrong was I tried to be different to be different. And that's the failure, that pride before a fall. A pride before a fall. And all the little foolishness that will go into in building a team of little plastic men. I'm right about this. I want to do this thing because then I did it myself and I can't, then I won't have to attribute PJ. I won't have to attribute Edward. I won't have to attribute George. I won't have to attribute blah, 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 blah. It does not matter. All that little petty stuff does not matter. Okay? And this is sort of how I'm going to end this talk about playing something different. There is something playing something. There is something in playing a element that is unique, that you started from scratch and that you brought to fruition and did well with at a tournament. Okay? You can't ever get mad if someone then takes that and does better with that element than you. All right, and at the same time, if you did well with it in a tournament, you can't get mad that somebody else says hey, that's different. I'm going to go play that, and they go and win tournaments with it. You can't be and I invented that. I invented that first. I made it. I made that team. No, you can't. You can't because, again, you'll get caught up in thinking that iteration of the team or any changes that somebody else made to it is your iteration is the best. Every other iteration is copying, and any other deviation is worse. Okay? And you can get big head real quick. All right? You get big head syndrome real quick. The other element comes in is when something unique and different does come around. It's like, oh yeah, I would play that, but someone else has already played that. And that's foolishness. Like, literally, the first major tournament after Origins, not this year, but last year, I played George's team. Point by point, figure by figure. What he played at Origins. I did not care. It was something different. It was different than Quinjet. It was different than playing, just playing Krang. It was different. My teammate, KJ, played the exact same team. We were playing mock little battles, against each other, playing, like, okay, well, you're going to play. I'll play as Krang this time. KJ, you play as the Lex team. All right. Bloop, 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 bloop. We're doing that. Okay? And in the end, I get second place. I lose to Goku in the finals. He makes, I think, top 4. And I remember, like, one of the shows, I don't know if it was 2 clicks. I remember Patrick talking about it. So it had to be 2 clicks. And I remember Patrick Patrick and Aaron going over the results. He's like, yeah, KJ is one of Edward's guys. How awesome would it have been if both of them playing the same build, playing George's build, would have won that weekend? They weren't talking smack like, oh man, they just copied George's build. Ha, yeah, like it, just like everybody else. They're like, oh, okay, it's different as George's build. It's not the same, 2 teams that we've been looking at. Okay, cool. There is some acknowledgement, but if I've lived through tournaments after tournaments after tournaments of playing something different, getting so far, only to fall short, and then wondering if I should have played standard. And that can eat you. That can destroy you. Definitely, if you think it can mess with you, being an average player, sort of look at it like me when it's Cheers. Almost everybody in the heroclix in heroclix community knows my name. Everybody on the competitive scene knows my name, and knows my face, and knows my voice. And then saying like, oh, look, Edward was at a tournament. He didn't make top 8. What happened, Edward? And then the mic's in your face. All right. So whatever you think like the pressure is for you, it's stupid silly on my end. It's stupid silly on my end. And that's why I had to sort of just say, screw the persona. Because that thing will destroy you. I'm going to this tournament to test something out. Cool. Accept my losses and successes. Cool. I'm coming to this tournament to win. Cool. I'm playing X standard and X different. Cool. You have to accept that. The goal is to win. And if you're going to be creative, understand it's all right to go back to the main road to get some water if you're thirsty. You don't have to stay out in the desert, find God in the burning bush, then come back to the main road. You're gonna die of thirst. You didn't bring a canteen out there, man. Go back, get some water, go back to the desert, and find God out there. It's fine. It's in that delusion in our community, and I would even say from a pride standpoint, is that if it's not 100% original, then, I'm biting somebody else's idea. And I will tell you this much. Running a team, looking at for other people's success, having 2 shows, I will bite tech so hard. I will bite into that apple with the widest mouth and be like, blah, 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 blah. Because there's good ideas out there. There's tons of good ideas out there. And it's not worth limiting yourself by saying, I didn't think of it first, so I can't do it. So anyway, that's today's show. Again, I apologize. I'm recording this on Monday. I'm going to try to get it out tonight. I recorded Quarry on Sunday, and other things just took up a lot of my time. So you can follow me on Twitter at StartOverPod. It came from outer space and told me that the space vampires of N93823569 do not suck blood, but they suck souls through the ether. Mwah! It's October. Had to get in the Halloween theme, you know. So you can follow me on Twitter, find out when the new shows are popping up. When Rocktober's going down, more than likely there's going to be a show either before Rocktober, or we're going to miss a week, and I'm going to have a Rocktober video posted up on that Monday. Because I'm flying in, I won't get there until Friday night, and then I tried doing a video and live uploading, and it was a headache. So what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to have a video after Rocktober of everything that I saw firsthand at Rocktober, and then that should be up Monday or Tuesday after the Rocktober. But leading into Rocktober that week, whatever I'm going to crank out, I'm going to crank out and just give to y'all. I'm not going to guarantee it's going to be a double show or anything like that. But I'll try to do whatever I can. You can email me at startingoverpodcast@gmail.com. That's startingoverpodcast@gmail.com. If you wish to opine, keep it piffy, keep it interesting, keep it awesome, baby. Keep it awesome, baby. Let me know, what do you think about your predictions going into Rocktober? In this corner is Unimind, the new challenger. And in this opposite corner, the reigning champion, the heavyweight champion of the world, the one that the ladies want to date and the gentlemen want to be like, Jakeem Thunder. Dun, dun, dun. You already see my bias. But yeah, which one do you think is going to win? Unimind, the cosmic soul entity, or Jakeem Thunder, the master of magic? And you can donate to the show by going to startingoverpodcast.blogspot.com. That's startingoverpodcast.blogspot.com. And if you want a Phoenix Nest shirt, you can go and click in the link below. You can get a Phoenix Nest shirt or a Starting Over Podcast shirt. All right, I'd like to thank you all for listening. And remember,